So I tested it a few minutes ago and seen how the video with the Saturday Evening Post did. Well, let me just say it did horrible. But right now we're going to do the Maisey Yates Cowboy to the Core, a Golden Valley novel book review. I'm going to read the back to you. I'm going to try and cover as many pages as I can. Hopefully my voice does not sound weird or distorted in any manner. We'll just have to see what happens. Gold Valley's wildest cowboy has finally met his match. Jamie Dodge is confident she knows everything there is to know about cowboys. She grew up surrounded by them after all, but somehow her new boss, champion saddle bronc rider Gabe Dalton, and his brand of cowboy charm have her interested in all kinds of things she's never been before. There are a million reasons Gabe should ignore his attraction to Jamie. He needs her horse training skills on his family ranch, and the Dodge brothers would happily hurt him for touching her. Forget kissing her, he'd be a dead man. But Jamie's tough talking attitude makes an innocence that tempts him past the breaking point and soothes the restlessness that dogged Gabe his whole life. Has this cowboy finally found a place that he wants to call home? As usual, she's one of my favorite authors, so she's going to get high marks. Inside the cover, it says, "For my readers, thank you for loving this series. You're the reason it exists." And chapter 1, page 1 of the story, there's a quote that pretty much sums up the entire book. "I ain't afraid to love a man, but I ain't afraid to shoot one either." Annie Oakley. And that's pretty much Jamie's whole outlook on life. Until her and Gabe get serious, then things change. Page 224. She didn't want to fight him, mostly because she didn't want to have a fight. Why? He could come and watch her, and he would feel better, and he would not be upset. They wouldn't have to waste angry words when they could be exchanging something far more pleasant. And just like that, she felt like she understood the concept like never before. It was a strange thing, but it seemed like a minor mystery of the universe had just clicked into place for her. Sometimes you didn't just fight because it didn't matter if you were right, because there was something bigger than right, a relationship between you and another person that you wanted to keep on steady ground. Again, it was the way that with her relationship with Gabe that was completely different from any relationship she ever had with her family. And that's when her feelings for Gabe starts becoming more serious, more in depth, if you will. Okay, on page 257. "But you know she's a Dodge. Once we put our mind to something," Jamie, particularly Gabe, said, and he realized that she had probably been a little bit too far, considering Wyatt was looking for tells that Gabe knew things that he shouldn't. "Yeah, she's hard-headed, that girl." He cleared his throat. "More than that, though. The way that she's been helping me out there on the ranch is proof of that. She's compassionate. She's had lots of ideas of what we could do for the boys and what we'll be bringing in." "Well, that's good. I'll help you get the horses out." He worked with Wyatt, getting the horses unloaded and then tacked them up in the pens before the event. It was a fun group of people that had turned out. Jack Monahan was there from the Copper Ridge with his wife, Kate. Kate did barrel racing professionally on and off, and Jack had retired from bull riding. Jack was holding a toddler on his hip, and Kate was standing next to the horse, clearly ready to do a run. Sierra Thompson was there too, another barrel racer from Copper Ridge, along with Dane, Wyatt, Grant, and Britt Bennett, and Dallas, Bennett's son. The barbecue was fired up, and the whole party was being made out of a little mini rodeo event that had been included with the stay of those who were at the Dude Ranch this weekend. It had also pulled in a small crowd from town in spite of the late notice, a testament, he thought, to the unwavering popularity of the Dodge family. The Daltons were revered, but they were whispered about. It wasn't quite the same as it was for the Dodge family, whose patriarch had earned the unending sympathy of the town, along with his 4 children, when he was widowed. Quinn Dodge was a salt-of-the-earth man, and if his sons ever raised a little hell, it was all because of what they had gone through was way back when. The Dalton boys were born hell-raisers from a family of people admired but also envied, because they had done the uncommon thing of rising up above themselves from the trailer park to the house on the hill, all in the same few square miles. It made people talk, it made them wonder, it made them jealous. And then given Hank was more than the sinner than saint, it didn't seem like it was a particularly great karma in the end. Gabe couldn't much argue with that. Still now, from the time to be thinking about his family, he walked over to the group of cowgirls standing together now and chatting near the end of the arena. And what's interesting to note is these cow barrel racers, if you will, they're married, they have a family. Jamie's going to point that out because they start listing off a list of reasons, really in their own mind, why they can't be together. And it's interesting to see what happens from that. But let's take it from page 277. Yeah, well, Gabe is making me have feelings, a diverse array of them, and it's just, I used to think there was only one way to be strong. I used to think there was only one way to protect people, but he makes me realize how much I hold everyone away from me, and I don't want to do that anymore. So things are changing. Her feelings are changing quickly. Page 316. My dad wanted to make sure that I was never going to go hungry, so I learned how to be self-sufficient. She blinked, unexpected emotion pressing down against her eyes. I learned how to be self-sufficient. I'm not sure I ever learned how to need anyone or how to be comfortable needing people, and sometimes I just feel like I really do need people, and I don't know how to tell them. Suddenly, Gabe's arms were around her. She set her plate down on a stump near by her feet and let him hold her. You said earlier that you felt like you had a hole, you were missing a certain kind of love. But I think, Jamie, love is pretty much love, and there's a whole lot of people in your life who love you. I wish I had hers. Her throat tightened all the way to be closed, and tears were starting to pour down her face. She never cried for her mother like this, but because there had never been anyone there to answer those cries, and she let him hold her, and she cried. She cried like a motherless child because she was what she was. Tears that she'd never allowed to exist, coming from a grief that she had told herself was pointless to have. But maybe, just maybe, some things didn't need to be fixed. Maybe some things just needed to be felt. And this needed to be felt with all of her, from the deepest part of her soul. And what it was like, that hole she'd been talking about, was filled with tears, filled with pain, filled with but filled, and Gabe's arms held her, rough and tight and comforting. I need you, she whispered. I really do need you. She'd been afraid of this needing another person, but she needed him, and she admitted it. And the world hadn't fallen to pieces. The world was just fine, and she might be a little broken in it. But he was holding her together so she wouldn't fall apart, not totally. He angled her head and kissed her, and then she let him kiss her, and she let him comfort her, let him see how wounded she was, how badly in need of healing. She wasn't going to get up and wipe the blood off, but she wasn't going to just bleed for a while with him. When Jamie finished crying, they finished dinner in a relative silence. They worked together to get everything cleaned up, to get everything that might attract a bear dealt with. Their sleeping bags were already unrolled inside the tent and zipped together because his mother, though a problem for him right now, had not raised him to be a fool. He hung a Coleman lantern in the center of the tent, and the light was raining down its range, the lane. Going forward, I want you to read this book, so I'm missing a chunk here and a chunk there, but I really want you to read this book. It's just amazing. Page 335. I love you, she said. He looked at her, those electric blue eyes gone hard. What? I love you. That's the point. When you love somebody, you want to be involved in their lives, and you know what? I haven't let myself do that. I love my brothers, and there's just still this wall between us. There's a wall between me and my friends, me and my father, all because I couldn't deal with the loss of the first love, that I wouldn't even let myself grieve. It's all self-protection. It's BS. It doesn't protect you from anything. It just keeps you lonely. I don't want to be lonely. I want to take care of you, and I want you to care for me, because that's how you love people. Because that's how you find some closeness. That's how you erase some of this loneliness that we all carry around in our souls. Believe me, I'm a champion at figuring out ways and reasons not to let people close, but I just can't do it anymore. I just can't. Jamie, look at the crap show that my family is. I'm not in any place to love someone, and honey, that's not what you want either. She wasn't sure what she expected, but it wasn't that paternal, ridiculous tone, him telling her that she didn't want to be in love. And regardless of the other changes that had taken place inside her over the past few weeks, she still didn't like being told what to do. She never would. That was one thing that she was sure about. No, she said, I'm pretty clear on that fact that I'd like to be in love with you. He pinched the bridge of his nose. You want to barrel race. Kate Monahan barrel races, Sienna Thompson barrel races. Nothing stops them from it. They have a husband and they even have children. It doesn't stop them. Yeah, and it doesn't stop from my father either, but him having a wife and children didn't stop him from having affairs. She blinked, trying to process the meaning of his words. And you think that I'm going to start having affairs? He sighed, the sound tired, weary, the sound of a man much older than 33. I believe that at some point my genetics are just going to catch up with us. Look at my family. My mother lied to me, manipulated me. My father deserved basically everything he ever got. They made bad choices, she said. Your blood doesn't make you go out and cheat on your wife, Gabe. I don't know about that. She was stunned just then by the unfairness of it, of him acting like there was no choice, that they were alive and well, and they could be together, but God knew what was up ahead, but they could have right now, except he was a damn coward. You know what your blood does, she asked. Sometimes it makes a clot after you have a baby, and the clot travels into your lungs and it kills you. You don't have any choice over that. My mother didn't have any choice over that. That's something that you can't fight. That's something that's real. Blood does not make you cheat. Then maybe it's all about what you learn, he said, and I sure haven't learned anything about how to be a husband. I sure haven't learned how to be a relationship is supposed to look. And I have? Look at me. Learning is all the things that I do. You don't understand, Jamie. I am like my dad. Right, as evidenced by the trail of broken hearts in your wake. You even told me that the first time that we had Boom Boom, you have had this act and you only slept with one woman and you couldn't hurt her. I had one girlfriend in high school after Dad sold the horses, but I put all the feeling into her and I made her promises. I was going to make a life with her, the life we wanted. Her parents sucked, and she dreamed of making this life with me. I thought I was immune to acting like my dad. I hated my dad right then. And then what did I do? I had unprotected Boom Boom with her. Jamie's breath felt like it had been sucked from her body. Oh, and then her monthly was late, and she thought that she might be pregnant. And how do you know what I wanted to do? I wanted to run as fast as hard as I could. She swallowed hard, trying to collect herself. Gabe, anyone would want to do that. I would want to do that if I found out that I was. I mean, let's not even talk about that. But I still think that everyone gets scared of something when something like that happens. Her heart was pounding hard, and she was fighting against the fierce need to demand the details of what had happened. She felt scarred and battered from just hearing that he had Boom Boom with someone else. And she knew he had a past, but he was hers, and she didn't like thinking about it. Well, I sure as hell didn't get down on one knee a few days later after she got her monthly false alarm, and I was so damn relieved. She was devastated. The fight we had, the girl that kicked a dent in the side of my truck, that someone her size shouldn't have been able to accomplish, I screamed at her because she was being crazy, and before I knew it, I was standing out of my body looking at my parents, and that was when I knew. I was just going to be part of that cycle. I'm not different. I'm not better. You are, though, she said. You are. Look at how you've made your whole life just for yourself. Because my mom told me about my dad's other kids and coming off what happened with Trisha, I wanted to make him pay, because you hate all the ugliness you see in yourself most of all, don't you? I'm not any better than he is. Yes, you are, but you're bizarrely committed to the idea that you are not. You are scared, she said. So I want you to just be honest about that. You don't want to do this just because you're scared, and I understand that, Gabe, because it's a whole hell of a thing. But pushing me aside isn't going to help you, not in the long run. Hiding from all of it, it's not going to make anything better. Believe me, I know. You're going to lecture me with the best wisdom of your 26 years and being with me, Jamie? That hurt. Stabbed her right in the heart. Made her eyes sting. How dare you use that against me? You experienced all this with me. How dare you minimize it? And you make me into some just 26-year-old, no experience or whatever. It was more than that. This is more than that, and you know it. And you never saw me as a somebody beneath you in that experience, or silly because of my age, and you never acted like I was, so don't go pulling it out now and when it's convenient for you. I'm just so tired of this. I'm so tired of living a life that makes me feel so alone. I don't know. I just stay the same. I don't want to stay the same. I want it to change. You changed me, and that's what I want. And I want to change for you the way you did for me. And it's not fair. It's not fair for me to have all this lost of my armor, to be all cracked open and crying all the time, and you for not to have it changed at all. It's like you said, he said slowly, when you haven't experienced things before, sometimes you don't know all there is left to learn, and you have more to learn than me, Jamie. That's a fact. I've lived more. That's not me insulting you or using your inexperience against you. It's just how it is. It's how it is, honey, and I'm not trying to be an idiot about it, but it's life. Don't you dare, she said, her voice shaking. Don't you dare lecture me, you coward. She was firing on all cylinders now, and she could feel it. Could feel the old her rising up against light granite. But this version of her was different and still. She was full of sharp edges and pain, and she wanted to use those edges to hurt him back, because she was Jamie Dalton, and she didn't want to cry for a man, not one she cried for so many times already, and she'd given him every damn thing. Everything. And he was just going to stand there and stare at her with those blue eyes. He was just going to stand there and let her brother be right about the fact that she was going to get her heart broken, and that she was going to have to face the fact that in the end of the day she was vulnerable to it just like everyone else. And she hated it. She hated it. And she didn't want to let it be true. You don't know what you're doing right now any more than you knew how to handle Gus when the first time I showed up at the ranch. You're being an absolute idiot, she shouted, her heart thundering and her hands shaking. You're afraid to make a damn choice because then it might be all your fault if you fail. It was easier to go on to the rodeo to tick off your old man and then blame him for all the success that's been thrust on you over the years. Poor Gabe, poor you, poor effing you. She could feel her emotions completely spinning out of control. There wasn't a dang thing that she could do to stop them. He was protecting himself, so she wanted to hurt him. Wanted to hurt him the way he hurt her. Both your parents are involved in your lives, and they're not perfect, but you could talk to them, and you could deal with it, she continued. My mom is dead, and that's it. There's nothing I can do about that. There's no way that I can have that back. I think of it every time the anniversary comes around. He looked stricken by the mention of it. There was no way I can have all that, and you can have me. You could, but you won't, because you're too damn scared, and you're hiding again, because all of these excuses. You're being a big, tough guy, big Mr. Alpha, out riding the rodeo, banging groupies, and starting a ranch for troubled boys. Help your damn self. You're the most troubled boy around here. She spun on her heel and started to walk away. He grabbed a hold of her and pulled her toward him and pressed a kiss on her mouth. She wanted to sink into it, into him, into that kiss, swallow up all those words that they'd spoken, even her words of love, to get back to and pretend that a few minutes ago that were nothing. But that kiss was everything, the only thing. But she couldn't do that. She struggled against him, hitting his chest with her closed fist. Don't kiss me. Don't kiss me if you don't love me. Don't touch me if you don't love me. Hell, don't even talk to me if you don't love me. She was shaking, rage pouring out of her like a river. Because I deserved better than that. Because I had to figure out what giving everything meant. And then once I did, I offered it to you. I changed. And I dug deep, and I found those pieces of myself I didn't even know were there for you. And you want to stand there and tell me everything I don't know? Want to tell me that what I want and how you have less growing to do? That's BS. And I'm not here for it. If you really did it for me, Jamie, said his voice rough, that was your first mistake, because I didn't ask you to. I didn't need you to, she said. She lifted her chin, her expression defiant. Some people don't need to be asked. Jamie, you're going to be a hell of a lot happier if you go do your barrel racing, live your dream, and then when you're finished, find a guy your own age. Oh, you think that I want your advice? Is that what you've been thinking this is? I give you advice about horses, you give me life advice that I didn't even ask for? That's not how this is going. That's not that's not what this is. I love you, you big, stupid, scared, freaking idiot. If that's what you think I am, what you know I am, shouldn't you be happy to let me go? No, jackass. I love you knowing that you're all that you are. I love you. It's not about life experience. I thought, when we were out there camping, I thought that I could live happily, stayed out there with you forever. And then it hit me. That's the problem. I think anyone could be in love for life if they were just separated out of the real world, away from family, away from problems, away from work, conflicting schedules and all that. But I love you here, and I love you even though I'm mad that you didn't include me when you went to go talk to your half-brother's mom. Because I would have helped you. And even if I couldn't have helped you, I would have been there for you, because that's what you do when you're in love. When you're really in love. His lip curled, a growl rumbling through his chest. How do you know? How do you know it's real? Because let me tell you, Jamie, I think my dad thought it was real, but he never kept it together once. My mom thought it was real, but she let herself stay in this toxic, ridiculous relationship. She had 15 good years with him, those past 15 and 35 years of pain, so you tell me, how do you think you know it's real? Because I'm choosing. Believe me, when you're as protected as I am, when your heart is hard as mine, you have to choose to fall in love. And I did, because I could see what we was over there. I could feel myself. I could feel myself me. And not just this person that I was forcing myself to be, who was not brave and strong and didn't need anybody. I want to need someone. I want to need you, because needing you made me feel more things, deeper things than even I thought were possible. And I don't care if it hurts. I mean, I would rather it didn't, but it's happier and better feeling nothing than it is being alone. The terrain inside her seemed to shift. As it did, her range seemed to shift as well, a sense of heaviness, of sadness joining it now. You make choices, Gabe, she said, the other words softer. And if you can't make choices, life will make a few for you. But then you can't, which when you wake up one day and you're all by yourself, realizing that all your glory days are behind you in every sense of the word, all because you didn't reach out and grab better when you had the chance. She waited for him to say anything. She waited for him to step forward and kiss her. She waited for him to tell her to stay with him. She waited as her anger drained away and a sense of futility fueled her body, and by her limbs getting weak. She waited, and he didn't speak. His blue eyes had gone glacial, and something shifted in them, a dawning realization, and she knew in her gut that it wasn't the one that she was going to enjoy. I went into the rodeo to hurt my father, he said. But what do you know what I actually found out? What? She asked. The word whispered. I am my father. I wanted to be different. I thought I would choose something different. Ranching, it's an inevitable, though. I ran from the frying pan to the fire, from the potentially knocked-up girlfriend to the rodeo. Once I got a taste of glory, that's all I wanted. Do you think that I said no to any woman who threw themselves at me? Because I didn't. On the night you found me at that bar, and I would have slept with that woman, Jamie. Even though I wanted you, it didn't matter. Sex has been cheap for me for as long as I can remember, and I'm just not that different. I'm never going to put myself in, or any woman in that position that my mother is in. I'm standing here hurting you right now, and you would be signing up for a lifetime more of that, and I just don't want to do that. You shouldn't want to do it either, but you don't know any better because you didn't see it. So I'm going to be the one to tell you that you don't want it, to tell you what you want to do. And that might make you mad, but you have to understand I watched it, and I will never be part of putting someone through that. So you choose not to, she said. That's not what I'm doing, whether you can see it or not. That's not what I'm doing. Well, here it looks a hell of a lot like running, she said. You can think what you like. You have to tell me you don't love me, she said, facing him head on. You have to tell me. Why? Because I'm not going to let you take the coward's way out. I'm not going to let you try to make this about me not knowing what I feel. I'm not going to let you talk all around it. You better look at me in the eye and tell me you don't love me, Gabe Dalton, because if you can't do that, then why should I walk away? Love doesn't mean anything. My dad tells my mom that he loves her all the time. He did it before they were married, when they got married, when he would come out of bed from another woman. What the hell does it mean either way? Say it, she said, crossing her arms. I dare you. I don't love you, Jamie. I'm not that kind of man who falls in love. She steeled herself against the words, let them glance off of her like a blow. She swallowed hard, shaking her hand. Then I think we're done here. I think it would be best if it was good work. It was good working with you, Jamie. You don't need me any more? She kept a sharp eye on his face. I'll manage. You either could have managed without me before or not, so which was it, the lie? Just go, Jamie. She turned, feeling strangely numb, but her feet disconnected from the earth as she walked on. In her head that refrain rang on, stand up, wipe the blood off, stand up, wipe the blood off, don't cry, don't cry. She got in her truck and closed the door, starting the engine and heading down the road. She didn't look back, her shoulders held straight, her body stiff, and it wasn't until she made a few miles down the highway that the first tear rolled down her face, and then another and another. She pulled over to the side of the road, put the truck in park, burying her face in her hands. A sob broke through her body. She couldn't stop, she just couldn't get up. She couldn't wipe the blood off and go on. There was no band-aid for a wound like this. There was nothing to stand the flow of misery that was pouring through her. She cried and cried and cried, and the whole time she kept thinking about the realization that she had on that camping trip. Some things couldn't be fixed, but they had to be felt. And losing the man you loved, you had to feel it. She had always thought that something like this was a weakness, something that she would never be able to fall prey to. But she realized as she sat there on the side of the road, the highway on one side and a wall on the pine on the other, that this was the strongest damn thing she ever done. She felt this. It was terrifying, because what if she never felt okay again? This was what she'd been protecting herself against all her life. She had wanted to feel the grief of loss of her mother. She hadn't wanted to feel the grief of loss of her mother because it might never end. She hadn't wanted to be soft because then she might be easily damaged. She hadn't wanted to be in love because she might lose it. But she couldn't stop this, and she couldn't cover it. So she had to live in it. Pain broke over her like a wave, and intense as any pleasure that Gabe had ever given her. This, she realized, was strength. Opening your heart, even when it might be wounded, feeling all of this, even when it might bring only pain, when it was the one thing that Gabe wouldn't allow himself to do. He was a coward. But at that moment she envied him just a little bit, because he was standing there, and she was the one crying by the road. But in the end, she was the one who was strong, and he was still hiding. Though at the moment, that cold comfort indeed. Okay. We're going to start again on page 352. I just got to find where I marked it at. So why is it that I saw Jamie Dodge getting the hell off the property looking murderous earlier today? I don't know, he said, because Jamie always looks murderous. He gritted his teeth against a wave of pain. No, she does not. What's going on between the two of you? Caleb asked. Nothing, he said. Right, that's why you look like you want to murder me right now. We had a little fling, that's it. She's pissed off that it's over. She'll get over it. She's young. She'll bounce back. Really? Caleb shook his head. That's some denial. What? I haven't seen you around her much. I'd say that what's between you is a little bit more than a fling. It doesn't matter. I like her. I do. But I'm going to get married and have kids. And anyway, that's not what she wants. That's not what she wants, or it's not what you want her to want. Jamie is headed for a big barrel racing career. She doesn't want to settle down with me. Maybe if I was still going out riding. So you have an excuse for everything. Caleb, don't you dare come in here and lecture me on what you think looks well adjusted. Caleb's face went hard. You have something to say to me? You're an idiot, Gabe asked. You act like you have everything together, sitting back and judging Jacob for being in mountains and not dealing with his grief, and you're playing husband and daddy to little Ellie and Annabelle, except you have none of the physical perks of it. Are you suggesting that I have boom boom with our dead best friend's wife? Caleb's jaw went hard as granite. He's dead. Caleb's lip curled into a sneer. I'm taking care of her because it's the right thing to do. Do you not understand that? I'm just saying, you can stand there and call me all out for my having excuses. Doesn't mean that you don't have the same. I'm not the one letting a woman I obviously care about walk away, hurting someone that I obviously care about. I admit that the one is much more than Dad's M.O. than mine, usually, Gabe said, but then there's that kind of the point. Sorry, I missed the point. Can you elaborate? Come on, the way that Mom and Dad have always been with each other, the way that Dad is. Can you imagine getting involved in that willingly? Caleb barked out a laugh. No, not that. But you know that there's plenty of marriages that aren't that bad. Sure, but my concern is the likelihood of being like mine, of being like my dad. I don't believe that, Caleb said. And it was the second person in a couple of hours to look at him right at him and tell him that he was a liar. He didn't know quite what to do with that. Caleb held his hands. Look, have whatever narrative you want, but you don't actually know everything about my relationship with mom and dad. It's just not that simple enough for us to all have gone through the same thing. All the BS is complicated. So whatever issues you come out of the childhood with, if I had a woman who loved me staring at me in the face and telling me she wanted to be with me and I loved her back, I'd take it. How do you know that's what happened? Because she had that look on her face of a woman who had her heart smashed into pieces, and I figured that's the only thing that'll do it. A wave of physical pain washed over Gabe, and he kept his face stony. He had ridden bucking horses for years, had all the kinds of cuts and bruises, minor stomping that he had to stand up and walk off because there was a crowd of people, because he was a champion, didn't show pain, because you got up again no matter what. You didn't cry when your dad sold horses. You didn't fall apart when your mother was crying in your arms and telling you about your father's illegitimate children and the way you could get back at him. You stood up and you moved on. It's what you did. It was what he always done, except now it was all crashing into him. He had done it for so long, and he had taken to a place there he wasn't sure how to do it anymore. He met his brother's eyes. Unless you have something else to say, you can go now. I have a lot of work to do. I don't have anything else to say, Caleb said, turning away. No, just one more thing. Gabe gritted his teeth. Of course you do. If you're so angry about the way Mom and Dad railroaded you into choosing the path that you wanted on, then at some point you have to quit letting your life be their choice. Why do you think I'm here? What do you think I'm doing just now? Just enough that you can pretend what you're doing isn't a reaction to them. Just enough. And then Caleb walked out of the room, closing the door behind him, and Gabe didn't let any part of the conversation replay in his head. Instead, he wheeled his chair over to the fridge and took out a bottle of beer. It was 1 p.m, and he figured better start drinking now. Page 358. Did Dane do this to you? Beatrix grimaced. I did it to him. You broke Dane's heart? I did, Beatrix confirmed. That doesn't sound remotely like you. I am just a person, Jamie, and I was scared because I'd never felt that way for anyone else, and the idea someone like him might love me, all of me, it didn't seem real. I wanted to protect myself. I never fit in with my family, I never felt right, and I just couldn't believe that this man, that I thought was so perfect, I was right. And I'm not sure that Gabe thinks I'm so perfect, Jamie said. Well, I don't think he broke up with you just because he feels nothing either, Bea said. How can you be so sure? Maybe he doesn't. Maybe I felt so much because it was so different for me, because it was such a change. But for him it wasn't. I've seen him with you, Bea said. Believe me, Jamie, if he wanted Boom Boom, he could have gone home with that blonde the other night. That would have been easy for him, but he chose you. I feel like you're not trying to compare my beauty to that woman, but it's feeling like a little bit of that way. That's not what I mean at all. I'm not saying that he could have picked a more beautiful woman. I'm saying that he could have picked someone that he wouldn't have had entanglements with, someone he wouldn't have to see later, someone he didn't have to work with, someone who his older brother wasn't looming around the corner waiting to punch him in the face. If he didn't have skin in the game, he would have gone with the simple, you are a lot, and he are a lot of things, but you're not simple. No, this isn't simple at all. It's just awful. Well, what are you going to do about it? I can't do anything. He said no. He said he doesn't love me. He doesn't want to be with me, and I can't fight my way through this one. I don't know what to do, Beatrice. Jamie, I was wrong. I thought that maybe if I told him I loved him, it would make everything okay. That it would fix him, that it would fix us, but I was wrong. Because I don't know anything about this. Less than a month ago I thought I knew everything, and now I think I don't even know myself. I don't even know anything. I've never felt so sad or small in my whole life. I just don't know what to do, Beatrice. He showed me all of these wonderful things, and he made me feel all of these hard, complicated feelings, and now he's just taking himself away from me. You're going to do what you've always done, Jamie. You're going to fight your way through it. You're going to carry all your things you learned from him, because that's the kind of woman you are. You're strong, you're scrappy, and you never let anyone tell you how it is. So why should you start with him? Because I can't. Exactly. She waved her hand. Make Gabe love me. No, but you can choose whether or not you let him make all those things you learned about yourself mean nothing. You can take it forward, and you can build yourself something good. Build yourself a life. It's terrible, but you can. You can choose what it's to do with that pain. We talked a little bit about my dad, and How the man who raised me isn't my biological father. How getting rejected by the man who was my biological father hurt me. It was the reason that I couldn't face Dane. The reason I almost destroyed everything with Dane. But you learned something real here with Gabe, and your feelings are real too, but you can choose what to do with them, with this hurt, and then, when the right guy does come along, you won't hide from him. I don't want another man, she said stubbornly. I want that man. Yeah, and I expect that will be true for a while. It would be true forever, and Jamie knew it. Maybe there would be another man eventually, because that was how life seemed to move on, but it would never be like it was with Gabe. He was her first. He was her first. Boom, boom, love, being told that she was beautiful, eating toast and hot chocolate in bed, heartbreak and longing. The first were so many firsts in life. The only thing we could control is our own choices, Bea said, the note of pragmatism in her voice making Jamie feel murderous. Funny, I feel pretty much said the same thing to Gabe. It didn't seem to make a difference. It might someday. You don't know. I had to go and sit with my fear for a while. Maybe that's what he has to do with his. In the meantime, don't forget who you are. You're strong as hell, Jamie Dodge. I'm a whole lot more fragile than I thought, too. But I think being able to admit that shows me that you're even stronger than I thought you were. Whew, what a good book. Moving on. Okay, page 370. He turned to focus on his father. Dad, I thought I was scared I'd be like you, but that's not it. I was afraid I was going to grow up and be like Mom and stay. Let someone hurt me, but I won't. I'm not going to let fear dictate who I am. And most of all, Dad, you were right. You have changed. You've changed, and Mom forgave you. I'm going to choose to do the same. I've got to set aside those things you did back then, because otherwise, none of us is going to move forward. But I think you have to do the same for Mom. Otherwise, there isn't a point. You can't hang on to something that you're angry at. It only gets in the way of everything else. It gets in the way of being a family. Gabe shook his head. We're not a perfect family, but I think sometimes we're more than good than bad. I want to make my life more good than bad. Gabe stood up. I have somewhere to be. Where are you going? His mother asked. To get my life. Gabe Dalton had spent more than 15 years believing this restlessness inside of him would never be fixed, but now he knew. He had been searching for peace, for a reason to stay home to make it home. He found it in Jamie Dodge, and now it wouldn't rest until he had her back. Oh, what are you doing here, Dalton? She asked. I have some things to say, he responded. He looked beautiful, wearing a black cowboy hat and t-shirt, tight Wrangler jeans that made her want to get her hands all over him. She wanted to stab him with a pitchfork. We don't have anything to say to each other. We're not friends, and I'm never going to make you toast again. I deserve that, he said, but the trouble is, Jamie, we are friends. We're friends, and we're a hell of a lot more. In fact, I don't even know one woman who could be so many different things. It was new to me. Why are you here? Emotion rose close to the surface. She was ready to cry again. She wasn't even ashamed. I told you I love you. I put myself out there, exposed myself, and you know that nothing in the world is scarier for me to do that. You know I spent my whole life protecting myself because I told you. I gave you all that information about me. You knew all the things that no one else does. And you abused that. You really seriously wounded me. I'm sorry, he said. I was a coward. You were right. And I was blaming my actions on everyone but the person who was really responsible, me. She narrowed her eyes. Go on. Really? You can keep on telling me how messed up you are, and I'm okay with that. She crossed her arms and crooked her head to the side. I messed up. You did all this work, Jamie. You figured out how to deal with the things that scared you and fall in love anyway. And I just couldn't do that. Not fast enough. You're right. I let myself think that I was the experienced one, that I was the one who didn't have the growing to do. But I did. I blamed my parents, but I let that go. I can't blame them not for my choices. He took a breath. Jamie, I have constantly aimed beneath what I was truly want for the most in my life. Since the first obstacle, the first time that I lost something I cared about, I haven't tried for anything I loved again because I didn't want to keep putting myself out there and keep hurting like that, because I watched my mother do it for so many years. I buried it all, pretended that I was like my father. I just didn't want to care so much about me, like the rodeo and the success and the anonymous boom boom was enough for me, but it never was. That there was never me, but a coward. Yeah, that I always was, but not you. You were brave. You were brave enough to cry, and that was When my emotion broke inside her and Jamie felt her tears streaming down her face again, she threw her arms around him and held him close. Because whatever he had to say next, it was what she wanted to do, and she wasn't scared. She was strong enough to handle whatever came next. I love you, he whispered. I love you, and I'm going to cheer you on when you barrel race, travel with you every damn event that I can make it to. I want to build a life with you. I want to marry you. I want to live with you. And Jamie, I'm going to choose to be the best damn husband ever. I'm going to choose you and only you every day the rest of the day of my life. The rush of love, of relief, pleasure had washed over her. It was so intense she thought she might faint, and that wouldn't be a thing Jamie Dodge did, swooning over a man. But this was the right thing to swoon over, if she was ever going to. Her life, her love, her man. Okay, she whispered, I choose you too. People like us, people with so much protection, we don't fall in love, honey. We have to hold hands and jump in. We have to do it on purpose because there's too many barriers in the way for it to happen on accident. And I'm so damn glad you chose me because it gave me strength to choose you back. Gabe, you're so many things in this world and they're outside of my control. That you would choose me, that you would take this one and those few things that you can choose and make it me. That's the most powerful, wonderful thing I can even think of. So you do love me? Gabe asked. Yes, she flung her arms around him again. Yes, I do. Will you marry me and travel all over, become a barrel racer champion and come back home to me when it's time? Yes, she said, even through her tears, she wasn't afraid to let it fall. Will you eat toast with me and drink hot chocolate? If we don't have it at our wedding, I'll start a riot. Perfect, I can't wait. Me either, Jamie said. Are we going to wear jeans to the wedding, he asked. Hell no, she said. I'm going to be a princess. I'm going to get the biggest, fanciest wedding dress you ever seen, and I'm going to wear it because I don't need to put on armor every day anymore, and I don't need to pretend that I'm one of the Dodge boys. I don't need to try and keep this town from thinking I'm poor, sad Jamie Dodge. I can just be me. She kissed him, and she never wanted the moment to end because right then Jamie Dodge felt all the pieces of herself join up together, completed by this man, and she was whole. They were whole together. Jamie Dodge had always taken care of herself. When she'd fallen down, she hadn't cried, not even once. She stood up and wiped the blood off and moved on. But she couldn't have to do that anymore because in Gabe's arms she found a safe space to cry. Now when she fell down, he would be there to pick her up. And that made her feel strong. And this book gets a 20 out of 20. Again, my favorite author. And it shows fear. It shows how to overcome that fear together, not separately, and how he had to face his fear of being like his dad. He didn't want that, and yet he was holding her at arm's length emotionally because he thought that was going to be the end result. She was being brave and letting her barrier down and saying she loved him when, yes, she was young, but she really did love him. And it's a wonderful book. Can't say enough good stuff about it. Again, my favorite author, but anytime it's one of my favorites, it's going to get a high rating. Pick up this book, Cowboy to the Core, a Gold Valley novel by Maisey Yates. You won't regret all the parts I didn't share with you. You've got to read for yourself. And stay tuned because if this thing works, I'll be with you after my workout.